My name is Pam Harvey. I'm a senior instructor in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology, and I teach two cures, course-based undergraduate research experiences. One is a freshman level course, and the other is a junior, senior level course. I was a postdoc in the laboratory of Dr. Leslie Limewand about 10 years ago, and I had previously in graduate school been involved in teaching and wanted to get involved again. She was coordinating a research-based course, and 10 years ago it was really quite new for seniors, called the Python Project, where students do gene expression studies on Burmese pythons. At the time, one of the instructors was leaving, and I very quickly volunteered to teach the class. So I continued to teach that course. And after I finished my postdoc, I realized that that was something that was really important to me, to continue teaching. One of the nice things about teaching course-based undergraduate research experiences is that I get to have student contact because it's exciting. Students are really enthusiastic about learning, and doing research is really cool. But I also get to keep my fingers in the research scene. So I feel that not only am I helping a future generation of students or scientists, but I'm also keeping myself thinking and keeping up on scientific knowledge as the years go by. So after 5 years as a postdoc, a position became available, an instructor position in our department to develop cures for freshmen, which was also very new. I think a lot of people at the time were reluctant to believe that undergraduates could do research at all, never mind people who are 3 months out of high school. So I took that position and developed two new cures that are now required for all MCDB majors. They're the discovery labs, where we focus on identifying new antibiotics or new chemotherapies. In teaching these classes, I think, evolved in the way I think about teaching research to students. In other words, the upper division class was for very competitive students who were aiming to apply to medical school and PhD programs. Those students were self-selected in the sense that they were choosing a 3-credit laboratory course as a senior, and that's really uncommon as an elective. The freshmen who are coming in are taking it because they have to, and they're not really sure what they want to do. So while I used to think of cures as preparing very well-qualified students for going on to a career in science, I now think of it more as giving people the skills to be able to interpret data and become a scientifically literate citizen, because they're also going to need that. And I think that that would serve a student who stays in school to become a medical student, and also the student who decides that they want to go to political science or do a different major completely, having that sort of critical thinking skill taught very early on. We're not interested in having everybody get a PhD or a medical degree. That said, 75% of my students coming in as freshmen say that they're pre-med. But I think in the course what we emphasize is that the skills that they learn in the course aren't really about salmonella or fruit flies or chemotherapies, but rather using these things as tools to develop critical thinking skills that they'll use no matter what they do. That it's okay if they don't go to medical school. They'll still be really well off just having this experience. So teaching cures I find to be incredibly rewarding, because you see the students grow, you push them to think and be independent, and you teach them about failing. Most science classes, biology courses that people take as high school students, they have a manual and they follow the directions. They get the experiment to work and they get an A. But that's not how research works. It's not how life works. You can follow every direction and still fail. So watching students grow to me is incredibly rewarding, and I love that. Going into this, teaching one section of a cure, or just 2 sections of a cure where you have 40 students, you get lots of student contact, and that reward is tangible. But in our department, as we scaled up, we had to start involving teaching assistants, and it really changed the way I experienced teaching the classes. What I realized was that really what was happening is the structure of the course was more resembling a real lab, where there's a principal investigator who runs the lab, and they hire postdoctoral fellows, they have graduate students, they have undergrads, they have technicians and research assistants, and this sort of scaffolding of experience. So when I started changing the way I was thinking about the cures, rather than feeling sad that I wasn't getting the student exposure anymore, if I started thinking about it as giving them a real lab experience where it's tiered and people are offering different things, I think it really resembles an authentic research experience in a lab. One of the things that's well known about cures is they are labor intensive. It's really a labor of love. If you imagine a 3-credit course where you're teaching a lecture and you're lecturing 3 hours a week, that's hard. But then when you're coordinating instead a class of 120 people and everyone's doing research and all the materials need to be prepared, it's an incredible amount of work. And I think one of the things that needs to happen at the university level is for everyone to recognize that this is not a normal teaching load. And I think what will happen over time, if it doesn't change, is that it's going to turn people off of teaching these classes because it is well over full time. If you consider the number of credits instructors and professors are teaching per semester, it's very challenging. The other thing is in our department, we replace the traditional labs, sort of what we call cookbook labs, with these research experiences. One of the reasons that cookbook labs work so well is that they're inexpensive, they're a known quantity, an experiment never lasts more or less than the allotted time. With research-based classes, it's incredibly expensive. I think our classes are in the range of 5 to 10 times more expensive than traditional labs were in this department. And it requires a lot of flexibility, both on the instructor's part and also the students, where, we publish a schedule of how we think things are going to go, and in the 3rd week, the bacteria didn't grow, or the Drosophila died, or something happens, and it requires curricular flexibility that's really challenging for instructors. After teaching the Python project for about 6 years, we decided that we should really take a look to see what the outcomes were. And at the time, what we were interested in, as I said, with an upper division research class, we really wanted these very qualified, competitive students to go on and stay in science and do amazing things, which is not, in retrospect, a reasonable expectation. But for that cohort, I think it was. And what we found was that 75% after leaving the Python project, and of course there are a lot of other factors in place. These are self-selected students, they take a lot of different courses, they have tons of different experiences. But our students, of the students who took the class, 75% of them ended up in PhD programs or getting an MD, which is amazing. And in following up with them and asking for comments, open-ended comments about how the courses influenced their decisions after undergraduate, they had really positive things to say, that they do remember that class. And many of them said that one day that we did that experiment that didn't work over and over and over again, they remember. And, I'm speaking only for myself, I hardly remember sitting in any classes as an undergraduate. So I think it does really impact their futures when they take these research-based courses.